Oh, hey guys. Yeah, I just woke up, look like shit, feel like shit. That's okay. We got work to do. So whatever, man. This video is for education and entertainment purposes only. Any and everything I say could be wrong. Do your own research and come to your own conclusions. So anyways, I read this article. It's from the Washington Post. It was written by a black man. And you can reference the video. It's I'm posting it right now as we speak. And it's about the Martin Luther King's Poor People's Campaign. And it talks about how Martin Luther King saw that the economic issue was greater than the racial issue, and that the economic issue included a rainbow of the dispossessed, including people like the poor Appalachian whites. You see? So basically, what Martin Luther King realized is that there are a lot of other people experiencing inequality than just blacks and colored people. And it included white people. For example, poor Appalachian whites. And so he shifted his focus and saw that as a greater issue than the racial issue. Okay? And the author, who again is a black man, Robinson, I think his last name is, the guy that wrote the article was a black man. And he himself in the article admits, like, racism hardly even exists today. Pointing out the fact that we have a black president. We have a black family living in the White House, And that, the issue today is not race. We have a black family. We have a black president. The issue today is not race. It's poor versus rich. This country has socialism for the rich and rugged individualism for the poor, which is basically a synopsis definition of what communism is. That's what communism is. Socialism for the rich, rugged individualism for the poor. So, now, and again, this article was written in 2015. Now, if this article had been written in 2016 or 2017, that author would have gotten fired from his job. He would have gotten canceled because the author of the article is arguing we hardly have a racial issue in this country. We have a fucking black president for come on. The issue is what Martin Luther King pointed out when he was trying to start the Poor People's Campaign, which included a rainbow of the dispossessed, including white people. And that was the bigger issue than race. Martin Luther King. So Martin Luther King was wrong, and all these people going on and on about that there's a race issue, they're all right. Well, what makes them right and Martin Luther King wrong? What made Martin Luther King like a leader in the equality movement? What was it? Was MLK just working for the Jays? Is that what it was? He's part of the Jewish space laser conspiracy? Maybe so, maybe not. No. So, you see, and again, if this article was written in 2016, that Washington Post journalist, whose name is Robinson or whatever, a black man named Robinson, he would have got canceled. And the mob would have come after him for daring to suggest that racism is not the fucking issue in this country. Now, I read an article a couple days earlier that had a similar theme. And it was a Cracked article. You remember the magazine Cracked and the TV show Cracked? It's kind of like Mad Magazine, same kind of thing. It's comedy, slapstick comedy shit. And that article was titled, how half of the country lost its fucking mind. And if you read the article, he's saying a similar thing. That all this is not, it's about rural versus urban. And rural people are poor people living in the farm country. And the urban is run by all these rich elites. It's an economic thing. But you see, nobody wants to talk about this. Why is that? Why is it that it's always Jewish space lasers and it's always, white supremacy? And it's never about money, huh? But then these same people, they always going on about, you need to follow the money, man. Why aren't you need to follow the money like I do. Follow the money. Well, I'm doing what you told me, and I've discovered, here's this, here's commentary on urban versus rural, but you're not talking about urban versus rural. Urban versus rural has, not really anything to do with race. It's about poor versus rich. See? And I back in 2015 when all this crazy shit started popping off with Trump online, I was on Facebook at the time, and all these crazy liberals, all foaming at the mouth, evil orange man, bad shit. And so I injected this article into the conversation. I'm like, you guys, it's not a race issue. And until the Democrats/liberals start to admit that there's something bigger than race going on here, which Martin Luther King himself agreed. Martin Luther King shifted the entire focus onto what I'm talking about. And when I presented that to the liberals in Facebook, they all shit the bed and started calling me a racist. I'm just a racist. I'm a Nazi. And it's funny because when I present the same argument to the conservative, right? You know what they call me? I'm just a communist. So yeah, maybe there is some truth to this whole thing about two wings of the same bird. When I present this article about the Poor People's Campaign and stuff to the liberals, they all call me a racist. How dare I? Well, but that was written by a black man in defense of Martin Luther King, trying to explain that race is not really the issue. And even Martin Luther King himself had to admit that there's something bigger going on. And when Martin Luther King got closer to the target of what's really happening, isn't that just a strange coincidence that that's when he was assassinated? And again, if this guy had written this article in 2016 or 2017, boy, he would have gotten fucking canceled and the mob coming after him. Funny how just, the day before 2016, you can write that article, but as soon as 2016, oh boy, now it's cancel culture time. Start canceling everybody who doesn't say what I want them to say. Like I said, I presented this to the liberals in the big liberal discussion on Facebook because Orange Man bad, and they all called me a racist, a Nazi. But yet, I could take that same Martin Luther King article that got all the liberals upset and present it to the conservatives, and what are the conservatives going to say? I'm a communist. Yeah. So, there's something bigger than race going. And again, when I read the article about how half the country lost its fucking mind, it was a cracked article, it was saying the same thing. You see, so I'm not alone, which is kind of weird. People like to talk and act as though I'm just crazy. I'm just talking crazy stuff. And then when they do finally have to admit, see, because the only time they'll admit it is if some famous journalist that writes for the fucking Washington Post says it. Well, then it's credible. But if I say it, I'm just crazy. You know? So once it gets to that point, then they start injecting. They're like, yeah, but, well, yes, it is economic, but, the race thing is, well, but Martin Luther King himself admitted that the economic thing is bigger than the race. Well, yeah, but the reason that it is because black people and colored people suffer economic inequality more than white people, and it's just all bullshit. They just can't like admit, So, and that's because, you know how people get weird when it comes to money? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Like, with a person, everything is kind of normal, seems fairly normal. But as soon as, like, large sums of money start to get into the mix of stuff, all of a sudden those people that were seemingly normal, they all start getting all weird, Almost like they just want a piece of that pie, and they'll do, you know what I mean? There was actually a study on this where they took a group of chimpanzees and they did like a study. And what they did is they injected the money system into this group of chimpanzees. And so all these chimpanzees, they're just doing what chimpanzees do, whatever they do. But as soon as they injected the money system into this community of chimpanzees, do you know what happened? These chimpanzees started acting weird, It's like, all of a sudden, like, these chimpanzees are, like, stealing from each other. They're stealing money from each other. The female chimpanzees start prostituting themselves and shit. Like, as soon as you inject money into something, people start getting all weird about it. And so, like, when you inject this economic inequality issue into a conversation about racial inequality and stuff, all these people that are supposedly all about equal rights, they all start getting all weird about it. Start saying, well, yeah, no, economic inequality is an issue because it's the blacks and colored people that are suffering the economic inequality more than anyone else. They start getting all weird like that. And I can already hear people being like, well, that is true. That's true. The colored people, they're the ones that suffer the economic inequality more than the whites and shit. Like, show me the statistics and facts, because I already know how it goes. Because there's more white people in the US, there's more white poverty than there is any other. So I already know the statistics. Even back in like the early and mid 60s, the statistics even back then was that 70% or more of whites made the same amount of money as your average black. And that was way back in fucking 1960. And just like this article points out, things are much different today. Back in 2015, we had a black family in the White House. We had a black president. You see black rich motherfuckers all over the place, so you don't have an argument when you start going on and on about how, well, it's the colored people that suffer more economic inequality than anyone else. No, it's not. There's way more white people in this country than there are blacks or any, and so more white people, the percentage of white poverty is bigger. White homelessness, nobody even does the numbers on homelessness. You know, the poor Appalachian whites who've been experiencing generational poverty for like over a century and shit. Like, see, and this is the other thing. People that have they haven't done any research on economic inequality because they're so obsessed with racism that they're not even looking at economic inequality. And here, like me, I've been like studying it. I have so many tens of thousands of hours of research, training, field study, field application. These people, they've never even looked at it, and then they're all of a sudden instantaneously, they're the expert. And what's their expertise opinion is, well, it's the colored people that are experiencing more economic inequality than the whites. You know, it's just all fucking stupid, dude. It's all stupid. Because that's what happens when money is, people start getting stupid and acting weird when you inject money into any and all discussions. People start lying, cheating, stealing, prostituting, doing whatever they can. Because the only color that matters is green. Ask Patricia Cullors, you know, the face of Black Lives Matter. Ask her what color really matters. The only color that matters is that green, baby, that green. And everybody knows it. You're not fooling anybody by trying to act like you're not fooling anybody. You just want money is your God. And you'll rationalize in your mind, oh, racism, we need reparations. Well, what about anti-whiteism? Oh, no, that doesn't even exist. I suffer more. There was a title of a video yesterday that was, or a couple days ago, the Victim Olympics. Like, who's suffering the most? You know, raise a toast to the host who is suffering the most. Everybody, raise a toast to the host who's suffering the most. You know, the wannabe kings of pain. You want to be the king of pain? Stand in line, baby. Stand in line. And it just always amazes and fascinates me how nobody wants to talk about it. How often are liberals talking about economic inequality? Unless they're conflating it with race, you know. Yeah. So anyways, nobody's going to listen. Nobody's listening to the race thing. Nobody. I mean, except for echo chambers. You got all these echo chambers of people going on and on about racism and shit, but everybody knows that the only color that matters is green. Everybody knows this. You're not fooling anybody. So, anyways, that'll conclude it, I suppose. I could go on, but, what's the point? So there's some news, old news. History repeats itself, right? See you, boys.